The ration line moved the same way it always did. Slow, orderly, and without apology. Cadet Roe Harlan stood at the back of it for the 4th time in 8 days. He did not fidget. He did not speak. He simply stood in the line with his tray, the way regulations said he should, and he waited. Around him, cadets from 5 different species shuffled forward. The Dravethi got their portions. The Meekin got theirs. Even the Salvari, who needed separate temperature preparation, received their trays on time, every time. When Roe reached the front, the Krelian logistics officer looked at his ration card, tapped his terminal twice, and said the same thing he had said every time before. Human allocation still under review. Next. Roe stepped out of the line. He walked back down the corridor. He did not slam anything. That was day 11. Behind him, 39 other human cadets peeled away from the line in groups of 2 and 3. Empty-handed, quiet, they had learned not to make noise about it. Noise had not helped. The first time it happened, Cadet Yevastrom, their senior, had filed an official grievance through every proper channel the Academy offered. The grievance had been acknowledged by an automated system and had not moved since. Roe found Yeva waiting in the corridor junction outside the barracks wing. She was leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, reading the response on her datapad for what looked like the 10th time.
Same answer, he asked.
Pending review, she said. She put the pad away. We have maybe 4 days of emergency rations left between us. After that, we have nothing. Roe did the math without saying it out loud. 41 cadets for days. The portions would be small enough to be almost insulting. Commander Vofrik knows, he asked. He was informed 3 days ago, Yeva said. He has not responded. She said it without anger, which somehow made it worse. They had both understood by now what this was. It was not a mistake that had been missed. It was a mistake that had been seen and left alone to see what the humans would do. The Krelian officer did not look up because he did not need to. The grievance system had not moved because no one had pushed it. Commander Vorik had not responded because he was watching. They were being waited out. That evening, Roe sat with Cadet Darabus and Cadet Bren, Ashford in the corner of the barracks common room. Dara had grown up on a farming colony in the outer belt, one of the rough ones where the soil processors broke twice a season and you ate what you could, pull from the ground with your hands. Bren had grown up in a maintenance hub, the kind of place where nothing worked properly and everything still had to function anyway. Roe had grown up in neither place, but he had learned somewhere along the way how to look at a problem from all its sides before he opened his mouth. He spread a rough station map on the table between them. Not the official cadet map, the maintenance corridor version, which Bren had pulled from the station's public infrastructure locks. The outer agricultural ring, Roe said, pressing his finger to a wide section near the rim of the station's lower quarter. It's adjacent to our wing, has been the whole time. I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't need to. Decorative plants. Bren said, for the diplomat, quarters, temperature controlled, well watered. Decorative, Dara said slowly. She leaned forward and looked at the map. Something shifted in her expression. Not excitement exactly, recognition, the look of someone seeing something familiar in an unfamiliar place. Who decided they were decorative? The station's botanical curator, probably, Bren said. A Salvari, I think. Dara tapped 3 sections of the ring with her finger. This one here, those leaf structures read as a variant of a starch plant. This one is some kind of seed-heavy flowering species. And this? She tapped the 3rd section. I don't know what that is, but the stem density means it's storing water and sugar. Something eats that. Something's supposed to eat that. Roe looked at her. You're sure? I grew up eating things nobody had named yet, she said. I'm sure. For a moment, none of them said anything. The emergency ration packs were sitting in a sealed box under Yeva's bunk. Counted rationed, already divided into portions that would keep 41 people functional, but not comfortable. For days of that. And then the humans would have to do the one thing Vathrik was waiting for. Ask for help in a way that looked like surrender. Roe rolled the map up slowly. Academy regulations, he said. Any cadet can request educational access to non-restricted station facilities for observation purposes. The agricultural ring isn't restricted, Bren said. No, Roe said. It isn't. He looked at Dara. How long would you need? She thought about it. Genuinely thought, running numbers in her head the way she always did. the way her colony had taught her. Not in optimism, but in reality. 5 days, she said. Maybe less. Ro nodded once. He did not smile because there was nothing to smile about yet. 41 people were going to eat their emergency rations in careful, humiliating portions while he filed a polite access request to look at plants, but they were going to do it. And they were not going to complain while they did. Across the station in his administrative office, Commander Vathrick reviewed the daily cohort reports. The human cadets had not filed a second grievance. They had not requested a diplomatic meeting. They had not made noise. He found this mildly satisfying. They were adjusting to the reality of their situation. He moved to the next. Nobody noticed them at first. That was the point. The access request Rose submitted was 2 sentences long, polite, formal, and completely within the limits of what any cadet was allowed to do. The station's botanical curator, a Solvari named Fifthus, approved it the same morning without much thought. Cadets requested observation access to the agricultural ring sometimes. They usually came once, found it boring, and never returned. The humans came back every day. They moved through the ring in quiet rotations, never more than 6 at a time, never loud, never leaving anything out of place. Fifthus watched them from the upper walkway the first day, expecting the usual. A few cadets pointing at plants, taking notes for some class project. What he saw instead was Cadet Daravis crouching beside a wide-leaf starch plant, with the focused stillness of someone who was not studying it. She was measuring it. She pressed her thumb and forefinger around a stem and closed her eyes briefly, feeling the density. Then she moved to the next one and did the same. Fifthus found this interesting enough to stay and watch for another hour. Below him, Bren Ashford was at a station terminal near the ring's maintenance panel, cross-referencing the botanical registry with a separate document on his pad. He worked methodically, flagging species, checking soil content readouts, making small marks. He didn't look like a cadet doing an assignment. He looked like a technician doing an inventory. Fifthus had tended the agricultural ring for 6 station years. Nobody had ever inventoried it. Meanwhile, Sub-Commander Orion was having a quietly uncomfortable week. He had filed his own internal notes on the human cohort situation 4 days ago. Not a complaint, just an observation. The ration allocation discrepancy was documented. The human cadets had been going without for nearly 2 weeks. He had expected the usual progression: formal complaint, escalation, diplomatic noise, and an embarrassing correction that made the station look incompetent. It was annoying but predictable. The humans had not been predictable. They had gone quiet, not the quiet of people giving up. He had seen that, and it looked different. This was the quiet of people who had decided something and were not ready to tell anyone what it was yet. He reviewed the access logs and found the agricultural ring requests. He pulled up the rotation schedule. 6 cadets twice a day rotating through systematically. He sat with that for a while. Then he walked down to the ring himself, stood at the upper walkway and looked. Dara was teaching 2 other cadets the difference between a stem that was ready and one that wasn't. She wasn't using technical terms. She was using her hands, showing them. Press here, feel that. This one, yes. This one, not yet. The cadets watched and copied. They were learning fast. Orion realized he was watching a harvest being planned. Back in the barracks, the emergency rations had entered their final days. Yeva distributed each portion herself, in person, so that nobody felt it was impersonal. She did not make speeches about it. She handed each cadet their allocation, met their eyes, and moved to the next person. Cadet Das Naran sat with his portion in his hands and did not eat it immediately. He was staring at the wall. He was one of the youngest in the cohort, 18, from a mid-rim station where life had been ordinary, and the academy had seemed like the biggest opportunity of his existence. He had not expected this. He had expected difficulty, training, exhaustion, but not this specific humiliation, this quiet institutional dismissal. Yeva sat down beside him, not across from him, beside him. She waited until he looked at her. "I know what you're thinking," she said. He didn't answer. "You're thinking about filing your own complaint, or requesting a transfer, or writing home." She paused. "Don't." "Why not?" he asked. His voice was steady, which cost him something. "Because Rowan and Dara are building something," she said. "And when it's ready, you are going to be standing with us when it happens, not watching from somewhere else." He looked at her. You know what they're doing? I know enough, she said. Eat your ration. Get some sleep. Show up for the agricultural ring rotation tomorrow. He ate. That evening, Dara met with Rowan and laid out what she had confirmed. The starch plants were ready in 3 days. The seed varieties could be processed into something dense and filling within 4. The third species, the one she hadn't recognized at first, turned out to be a relative of a root vegetable common on 3 different alien homeworlds, and it was rich in exactly the kind of caloric content that human biology processed well. We'll have surplus, she said. Real surplus. Rowe looked at the numbers. More than 41 people can eat. A lot more, she confirmed. He leaned back and looked at the ceiling. He was thinking about something. She could tell. The expression he got when a problem had finished becoming a problem and was starting to become a plan. Then we don't keep it, he said. Dara tilted her head. What do you mean? Rowe said nothing for a moment. Then how much would we need to feed the whole wing? All cohorts? She blinked. Then she pulled her pad back out and started doing the math. Rowe waited. He was good at waiting. Across the station, Orion sat at his desk writing a note to himself that he would not show to Vothrek yet. The humans, he wrote, are not running out of time. They're using it. The smell reached the main corridors before anyone understood what it was. It came through the air circulation vents slowly, the way things do when they have time and nowhere urgent to be. At first it was faint. Something warm, something changed. Something that had been raw and was different. Then it deepened, richened. It pressed into the Drevathi dormitory wing and made 3 cadets stop. Their training review mid-sentence. It drifted into the Meccan communal space and caused a long, confused silence. It found the Solvari quarters and stopped. Fifthus entirely as he was walking to his evening station. He stood in the corridor with his nostrils flaring and he thought, that is coming from my ring. He was not angry. He was something far more complicated than angry. It had taken the humans 2 days to build the cooking structure. Bran had done most of the engineering, pulling thermal venting access from the station's secondary heat exchange system, which was approved maintenance infrastructure that any cadet with technical clearance could access for temperature regulation purposes. He had requested that clearance on day 1 of academy enrollment and had never used it until now. He built the hearth in the wide, flat maintenance bay adjacent to the agricultural ring. It was not beautiful. It was functional. Stone-weight ballast blocks from the ring's groundwork foundation, stacked into a low, wide form that distributed heat evenly with a vent channel running directly into the station's air system. The air system, of course, circulated throughout the entire station. Bran had not mentioned that detail to anyone. When Rowe saw the finished structure, he stood in front of it for a long moment. It's within regulation? He asked. Fully, Bran said. I checked 4 times. Good. They lit it that same evening. The first fire was small, test heat, learning fire, and the smoke it produced was thin. By the next morning, when the real cooking began, it was not thin anymore. Dara ran the kitchen the way her colony had run its harvest seasons with task lists, rotating assignments, and absolutely no wasted motion. She had divided the cohort into 3 groups, harvesters, processors, and cooks. Nobody stood around. Nobody doubled up where they weren't needed. Even Dos Nareen, who had barely spoken in days, was given a job he could do quietly and alone, checking the starch plants for ripeness, and he did it with a focused attention that seemed to help him more than rest would have. The food that came off the fire was not elegant. It was honest, dense, and hot, and built for people who needed to eat, not to impress. The starch plants roasted into something heavy and satisfying. The seed varieties, ground and pressed and heated on flat metal sheets, produced a flatbread that was rough on the outside and soft in the middle. The root vegetable, which Dara had initially been uncertain about, caramelized when held over sustained heat and became something extraordinary, sweet, dense, almost smoky, with a smell that moved through the air like a slow announcement. That was the smell. It was that root vegetable, caramelizing in 40 portions at once, that pushed through the vents and stopped the Drevathi cadets mid-sentence. Fethus arrived at the agricultural ring at the 17th hour. He had not been summoned. He came because the smell had given him no other option. He found the ring half-harvested, clean cuts, careful work, nothing torn or wasted. And the human cadets working in a rotation so practiced it looked like they had been doing it for years. He stood at the entrance for a moment. Dara noticed him first and walked over. Curator Fithis, she said. I should have told you directly what we were planning. I'm sorry I didn't. He looked at the ring, then at the hearth beyond the bay entrance, then back at her. You know these species? He said, not a question. Some of them, she said. The ones I didn't know I researched. He was quiet for a moment. Then he walked past her into the ring and stood beside the nearest starch plant. The one she had pruned back carefully to the secondary growth take over stronger. He examined the cut. It was clean. Whoever had done it understood the plant well enough to help it, not just take from it. He sat down on the low groundwork border and watched the humans work. He didn't leave for 2 hours. Commander. Vafrik received the report from his facility's monitoring system at the 18th hour. Open fire base preparation activity detected in maintenance. Base 7 adjacent to the outer agricultural ring. Cadet origin human cohort. Regulation status compliant? He read that last word twice. He put on his plain administrative coat, not his uniform, and walked to the observation deck above maintenance base 7. He looked down through the wide viewport at what was happening below. 41 human cadets, a constructed hearth, organized, quiet, rotating labor. The smell even up here was dense and warm and entirely impossible to dismiss. He had expected them to break, to beg or complain or escalate in some way that would let him document their inability to manage pressure. Instead, they had done this. Orion appeared at his side. Vafrik had not heard him arrive. They stood in silence for a moment, both of them looking down at the smoke rising in thick, slow columns toward the vents. They are not complaining, sir, Orion said quietly. They are cooking. Vafrik said nothing, but he stayed at the viewport for a long time. Yevstrom walked the main cadet corridor alone, without explanation, and knocked on every cohort door herself. She did not send a message through the station's communication system. She did not post a notice. She walked to each dormitory entrance, waited for someone to answer, and said the same thing each time. The human cadets were eating at the 19th hour in the maintenance bay adjacent to the outer agricultural ring, and anyone who wanted to come was welcome. No conditions. Bring nothing, just come. Most of the alien cadets stared at her. The Dravethi group, 12 of them, grouped in a tight cluster near their door, looked at each other with a rapid eye flicker. That meant they were running the offer through their social logic, checking it for hidden obligation or trap. Yeva waited while they did it. Then the tallest one, their informal speaker, asked why the humans were sharing. Yeva thought about the question for a moment. We made too much, she said. That was not the whole truth, and she suspected the Dravethi knew it. But it was not a lie either, and they seemed to accept it. 2 of them came. The Mekon sent 4. The Solvari sent Fifis, who had technically not been a cadet for 6 years, but had apparently decided that did not apply to him tonight. The Grohl cohort, 8 large, slow-moving cadets who rarely mixed with anyone, came entirely, all 8 of them, and said nothing on the way in. The smaller species groups sent 1 or 2 each. Ambassador Lynn Crossfield arrived before most of them. He was a quiet man, middle-aged by human standards, with the particular stillness of someone who had spent his career watching things happen and writing them down very carefully afterward. He had been stationed on Vriffis as a diplomatic observer for 3 months and had, in that time, filed 7 reports that nobody had acted on and attended, 11 meetings where he had said very little. He had known about the ration situation since day 4. He had not intervened because intervention was not his role. His role was to observe. He found Ro near the hearth overseeing the final preparations. The smell was overwhelming up close, layered and deep, the kind of warmth that reached past the nose and settled somewhere further in. Crossfield stood beside him and watched the cadets work. Was this planned? He asked. Ro considered it. The food was planned. The invitation wasn't exactly. It just seemed wrong to keep it. Wrong how? Ro was quiet for a moment. He watched Dara direct 2 cadets in the slicing of the root vegetable. Steady hands, even cuts, the motion practiced now from 4 days of repetition. We were hungry, he said. Other people being hungry too seemed unnecessary. Crossfield nodded slowly. What would you call this? Officially? Dinner, Ro said. The alien cadets arrived in 1s and 2s and clusters over the next half hour. And they stood at the edges first. The way people do when they are somewhere, unfamiliar and have not decided yet whether to commit. The humans ignored the hesitation, not rudely, But the way people ignore rain when they have work to do, they kept moving, kept serving, kept building the portions out. Desnorine was the first one served. Yeva did it deliberately and in front of everyone. She carried his portioned tea.